This is Mark with another Yhamradio for April 2015. I'm W5MHD and we're here with Bruce Campbell, NK5W. Good afternoon.
Hello there, Mark. How are you?
Doing well. Good to see you today. And we're here at your shack and looking around, and you're going to tell us why ham radio for you. How and why did you get into ham radio?
Well, I actually started, Mark, a novice class in 1964. And as a very young kid, I didn't last very long because most of the information was over my head. But I started the novice class in 1964, and that really brought a interest to my life. And unfortunately, I didn't stick with it until later in life. And in 1989, as I left work one day, I was involved in just ahead of a tornado that struck the area where I was working. And I couldn't tell anybody. I had no way of telling anybody. So I renewed my interest in ham radio. And in the latter part of 1989, I took a short class for technician. They knew that the program was going to evolve and change in the first part of 1990. So I took my technician test, and started out as a no-code technician in January of 1990 and received my license in February of 1990. So it's now been 25 years.
Wow.
And now I've gone through from technician to tech plus to general to now an extra class.
Great, super. Unbelievable. Everybody's got a story and you've got a great one. Well, tell us a little bit about the hobby and the part that you enjoy the most.
I enjoy most all of it, as a matter of fact. Rag chewing and contesting and traffic handling and DXing, it's all very interesting and a lot of fun. That's probably the best part of it, is the fun part of it. And I have met some of the best people in the world, Mark. I've been invited to New Zealand. Mm-hmm. I've been invited to Scotland. I've been invited to into Europe and a good many places in the United States here.
Yeah, roger that. Great. Well, I know it's a lot of different parts of the hobby, and everybody gets involved in the parts that they like. One part you're involved is the ARRL.
The American Radio Relay League has done a tremendous amount of work on behalf of the hams, the amateur radio operators here in the United States, and the part that we see as operators and as individuals is a very small portion of what goes on behind the scenes, because they are very actively involved in protecting our ham radio frequencies. Mm-hmm. And assisting the Federal Communications Commission in making sure that the operation of our bands is done correctly and properly, without any abuse or the bad operating that we've seen mm-hmm. in a good many portions of the bands.
Mm-hmm. I see.
And so I have been involved as a volunteer examiner, and have been selected as one of the ARRL technical specialists in the section, the state of New Mexico.
Great. And so one of your jobs is to assist in the licensing of others to be in the hobby, is that correct?
That's correct. That's what the volunteer examiner portion is. The volunteer examiners volunteer their time, of mm-hmm. course, to assist others in taking testing, license examinations, mm-hmm. and studying, training, teaching, and also to mentor some of the other young hams as they come in. Mm-hmm. And by young hams, I don't mean age-wise, right. But and they could be people that are of all ages, from teens to 20s to 40s to 60s. Sure. Just as they become, more experienced in the hobby, sure. Then as we all grow and develop, mm-hmm. That's part of it.
Talk a little bit about the view of ARRL. Most of it, I think, is positive, but there are some that are a little bit disheartened or not so happy with the organization. Can you help us with that?
Well, and I wish I could, Mark, and I don't really know how people feel and why they have opposing views, why they're dissatisfied with the American Radio Relay League, because it has done and is continuing to do a great amount of work on behalf of the U.S. amateur radio operators. That is our representative organization, and I'm sorry, I don't understand why people feel so bad about it, are so opposed, because they do a lot of things. They do help us quite a bit. They have managed to get us the 60 meter band, and they're working on more in the UHF and super high frequency microwave bands to keep commercial interests away from us, from taking our frequencies. We already lost one portion a good many years ago of the 220 band, and we don't want that to happen again. So they're working behind the scenes to protect that. They have a legislative action committee, and also the volunteer committee made up of amateurs like you and I, to help protect that and to do what we can to support them.
And even right now, working on the antenna ordinance to have be able to put antennas up in our communities.
Yes, that's one of the things too. I'm glad you reminded me of that. The antenna committee is working to expand the PRB1 so that the gated communities, if you would, with the very restrictive codes, covenants, and restrictions, they pretty much prohibit amateur radio operation. Well, we're trying to get that alleviated so that the hams that do live in those communities will be able to put up some type of antenna without fear of reprisal.
Right. Roger that. Okay, very good. Well, we'll come back in a minute and you can show us your shack a little bit and all the toys.
Right here.
Okay.
We can go ahead and right through.
All right, thanks so much. Okay, we're back with Bruce Campbell and NK5W and his shack, and so show us around and tell us what we have here.
Well, this is the operating position for HF, VHF, and UHF. The bottom shelf comprises of the work surface with the microphones and the computer keyboard, of course, as you can see. Now, you may notice the covers over the microphones. These are old socks that I kind of put on there to protect the microphones from dust and dirt when they're not being used. So the microphones sit on the work surface, and you'll notice a large speaker which comes from the HF radio, the antenna rotor and antenna switch. I run one feed line out and out of the HF operation and switch it on the outside so that I can run many antennas by merely turning the switch. Okay, and the antenna rotor rotates my Yagi antenna, my HF amplifier, which is full legal limit, 1500 watts. The tuner is connected with the amplifier, and the HF radio is 100 watts, as they would call barefoot. It's a Kenwood TS690, which is a HF 160 through 6 meters. The rest of the equipment, VHF, UHF radio with a matching speaker. And you may notice some of these little boxes up here on top. These are voice keyers. A very handy device for contesting because it records your voice and then plays it back out on a repeating basis on whichever radio you have them connected to. And of course, I have local FM dual band radios and also a 400 watt amplifier for VHF. And with matching microphones and such as, and at one time it was a little bit more cluttered than this, but I've reduced it down to something that is a little easier to operate and keep clear, keep the desk a little clearer, and then I keep my computer here for logging and for looking up call signs and then other information.
Looking at this great setup here and shack that you have, what would you tell someone seeing the video for the first time and maybe is considering getting into the hobby? it seems kind of intimidating. What would you tell some of those? You're an examiner and help the young hams coming in. What are some of the things that a young ham that wants to start to get into the hobby? It looks very expensive, and it looks complicated. How would you explain, a good way to get started into the hobby?
A little bit at a time, Mark.
Okay, good.
Okay, this happens to be a ICOM dual band, and it has an LED display, and this radio is more of an end result where I want to be, and it has evolved from several others that I started with earlier into this is where I want to be. It is a graphic display, has a nice LED display, and 50 watts, and it's a dual band radio. So that's where I want to be, and that's what I would say. Start something small for a new operator. You can communicate with a lot of people in a local area and get to know them, get to know how ham radio operates, and get to know different pieces of equipment. Once you can communicate with a lot of people, you can get other ideas and formulate your own plan on how you want to set your station up. Go from there. Start small, get a small antenna, and test the waters, you might say, to see if you're going to like it, because you don't want to spend a whole lot of money if you think this is not where you want to be. So start small, get into where you can talk to a lot of people, start checking into nets, get involved in simplex frequency groups, meet people, get ideas, see examples of other stations, and then move up from there.
All right, we're back with the Shack and NK5W. Bruce, and you were talking a little bit about the nets, your net controller on several. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure, Mark. During the morning, during the daytime, I usually I've taken over, not usually, but I've kind of taking over Rusty's Raiders net as a net controller. That's a VHF net on 146.94 and 146.96. That's a daily net, Monday through Friday from 8:45 to 10:45. Local area, and that's a very nice net to get people to come to gather to and to rag chew a little bit, talk about what's going on and how they've been and what they're planning to do for the weekend or the rest of the week activity-wise. That's one of them. And I also run the single sideband nets on Monday and Wednesday night, the 144 megahertz on Monday night and the 432 megahertz net on Wednesday night, and once a month the JBO on .40, the KC5JBO Memorial Net, remembering our friend D, KC5JBO, who became a silent key in October of 2014. His life, as it was he impacted, affected us all. And even today, I certainly do miss him. So it was nice, Mark, that you and I were able to come together to formulate this JBO net. So we've brought some other control operators to work with us on that. So we do once a month. So each one of us takes a turn each week, and we're able to run the net and only do it once a month, each operator. So, and that runs every Tuesday night on FM Simplex 146.40. So it's a fun net. Brings everybody together to remember D. So there's other things going on. Those are only a few of them that I'm involved in. Of course, there's other FM nets in the morning on some of the other repeaters, and HF nets on Thursday night, and unfortunately I'm not involved in those, but I think I'm busy enough as it is. Yeah, I've been asked to be a net control operator for the high noon net, and I unfortunately had to decline. I'm busy enough as it is, and Debbie has asked me to kind of curtail some of those activities too. So, and the nets are a great place for new people, new operators to join in, to hear how other people are doing and talk about specific problems that they're having or needs. things like that, and how to do this, how to do that, what the operator privileges are, what the procedures are, and things like that.
Fun.
Oh yeah, and have fun. That's the most important part.
So you're going to try to get into, what net is this, Bruce?
This is the high noon net. I just received a phone call from a guy that's in another station that's in downtown Phoenix. He's got a lot of noise and very high noise level, so he called me to see if I can get him checked in. Being that this is starting the new month here, the first part of the month, for this particular net, you need to have 4 check-ins for the month in order to stay active on the roll call. So I'm going to have to get him in, otherwise he'll miss one of them for the month.
And what radio are you using?
Right now we're on the HF radio, and I have not turned the amplifier on, so I'm only going to be using about 90 watts. I can turn it up. Okay, now we should be at about 100 watts.
DX for Hunter with short time, WB0, EZU, Glenn.
Contact John, NK5W.
Roger, calling.
Yeah, John, this is NK5W. I want to relay in NT9B. NT9B needs a relay, and he said the K stayed at 3. The K stayed at 3, over.
Roger. Yeah, we got him down on the paper. Thank you for that update for me.
Okay, and also KB0YYG, Jack in the Mobile wants to get in too. There, John, over.
Roger. He got relayed in, and I got him down on the paper.
Okay, Jack, you're in there, Roger.
Thanks, Chris. Short time, no traffic.
Okay, 7-3, NK5W. Back to you, John. Thanks for letting me get in.
Roger. You, anytime. Always appreciate the help, especially in conditions like they are now.
Okay, we got him in.
Now, just for clarification, that was the net control that you were talking about on that particular net?
That's correct. I was talking to N5LHO, John, down in Clovis, New Mexico. And some of the other stations were over in western Arizona, and for some odd reason they couldn't get in. So it helps to have a station that they can use as a relay. And in this particular instance, I was able to relay them in.
And so relaying is passing their information on to the net control.
Yes, that's just exactly what it is. It's another station just relaying the information from one to another. And in such instances when the communication is marginal, that's what you need. You need to have a relay station, an auxiliary station to help move the information along.
And for someone that's not in ham, this is all connected to emergency services, correct?
It can be. It can be. Emergency services uses ham radio, but ham radio is not strictly emergency services.
Right.
They do have what they call an interoperability, so that ham radio can be part of emergency services, and emergency services can use ham radio.
Right.
Of course, but as you well know, they're not the same.
Right.
Emergency services, can be used for police, fire, rescue, such as that. Ham radio can be used strictly as a hobby radio, which is what it was designed for.
Right.
And it's not business connected in any way.
Right.
So ham radio is pretty much hobby radio.
Okay, great. All right, now before we go out to the antennas and taking a look at your system back there, so all during the time in the many years you've been involved, have you seen changes over the hobby at all?
Yes, Mark, and I'm afraid to say some of the changes I have seen are not good ones. In our conversation, previous, the changes have happened kind of slowly, and so we've become more used to the bad. But if you go back and examine how ham radio was 15, 20 years ago, and then you look at it again today, take a picture of it today, I have not seen the level of disrespect and poor operators that I see today, I have not ever seen that in the past. It has gotten very, very bad, and I do not mean that in a negative aspect. Anyone that would dial through the frequencies would find bad spots.
Right.
They would find bad operators, but that's not everywhere.
Right.
We have a great deal of latitude,
Right.
by spinning the dial to go to different frequencies.
Right.
So, unfortunately, there are people in other countries that are bad operators, and we hear them. And such. There has been one that's up in the west coast of Canada that has beamed his signal into the United States. That's been, very bad. And unfortunately, we have little control over that. So that type of operation reflects on amateur radio operators, in unfortunately in a bad light. We're not all that way.
Right.
A very, very high percentage, are very excellent operators.
Right.
And good people and courteous and good operators.
Right.
It's just like the old story about one bad apple spoils the bushel.
Right.
Well, unfortunately, that's what you have here. You have one or two bad operators worldwide,
Right.
and unfortunately it's a few more than that.
Yeah.
But you have a couple of them that might even be in your own area
Right.
that they spoil it for everybody else.
Right.
So,
What do you think we can do as a group to try to, probably can't eliminate, but to, bring that to a smaller percentage?
well, we can't really do much about the people that already exist.
Right.
But as we get older and time marches forward, sooner or later those people are going to be gone.
Right.
So it's our objective, it's my objective as a technical specialist and as a VE and as a mentor to bring those people new to the hobby,
Right.
bring them up correctly,
Right.
mentor them, help them, train them, bring them over and operate with them, operate on the amateur radio with them, so they see good examples. They learn the proper procedures. They learn good operating procedures, early in their career, and train them up right as you want them to be, so that when they get older in life, they pass those good habits on.
Sure.
So we need to be better mentors. We need to be better mentors, and not be afraid of saying, that maybe you should be doing this a different way than what you're doing.
Right.
And
Give good examples.
Absolutely, at the risk of not offending somebody,
Right.
because the political correctness is going to be the downfall of us all.
Right.
So we need to step in and say, you're doing this wrong. This is not correct.
Right.
This is how you do this. Do this way in the future,
Sure.
so that they learn to do it the right
The right
way.
way.
They learn to do it the correct way.
Well, speaking of doing it the correct way, let's go take a look at your antennas. And see
Not,
how
not much to see out there today, but we can go ahead.
All right, we'll be right back. Okay, so what are we looking at, Bruce?
Well, right here, through the shot, hopefully you can see the HF antenna. This is a Mosley 4-element, and it happens to be a 7-band antenna because it has a add-on kit that was put onto it with different coils and longer elements. And this covers 10 through 40. 10 meters, 12, 15, 17, 20, 30, and 40. You see the big long element there towards the middle left. That's the 40-meter element, which ends up being a 40-meter dipole, rotatable dipole. And it's only 25 feet high.
Right.
But being at 5,700 feet above sea level, this certainly helps.
That's what I was going to say. The audience viewing this video doesn't see where we're located. Can you explain a little bit of how high you're up and where we are.
Well, my house is located on the West Mesa of Rio Rancho. I'm near the top of the West Mesa, and putting a GPS out on the mailbox come up to be 5696, I think it was.
Wow.
And so you don't need to have much elevation above that.
Right.
To get up in the air. And at some points during the year, you don't really want to be too high. We get high winds, and we've had some pretty good lightning strikes around here, so you don't want to really get it too high if you don't have
you been
to.
hit at all?
Yes, I did have one. I had one lightning strike here about 2 years ago. I had a vertical post, a vertical mast with my inverted V on it, my wire inverted V, and the mast took the hit, not the wire, not the antenna, but the mast took the hit while we were sitting out here in the patio.
Oh my goodness!
It scared us.
I bet.
And made a believer. And it's moving a little bit in the wind. The wind's calmed down a little bit. It's generally facing north from where we're at right here.
And this has a rotator on it?
Yes.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, the rotator is down below.
Okay.
It's down a little bit, down about 10 feet or so.
Very good. And all your radios are coming through here at one point or another.
Well, this is HF only.
Oh, HF.
This is HF only.
Okay. I got you.
If you want to swing around here 180 degrees, you see this one here.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't see that.
Yeah, this one here is the VHF.
Oh, okay.
This is a 2-meter VHF.
Right.
And yeah, I'm in the process of doing some modifications here with the other tower. Okay. What I call the north tower is laying down on the ground right now. I had to do some changes to the rotors and such as that, and so that's in the process.
Antennas. Tell us what you have over here.
Well, the rack over here has some of the antennas that are down. There's a 2-meter Yagi in there, a 17 element 2-meter Yagi. There's a 222. I think the 1296 Yagi is in there. There's some verticals and extra parts. Extra parts from antennas that I've collected. Wow. And occasionally you need to have an extra element when one gets damaged by a bird or something. I actually had a hawk come over, and on the horizontal 2-meter Yagi, he landed on the end of it and bent the element.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
He was a pretty good sized bird. There's another dual band vertical over here to the left a little bit more.
Right.
That's on the that little ICOM graphic face radio. And then there's a one to the right over here. That's the 4-bay monopole for UHF for 440. Right. That is a commercial antenna that has 2 bays facing southeast and 2 bays facing northeast, which gives me approximately 6 dB of gain in each direction.
Okay.
So that was a purchase I made from a guy that had some commercial interests, and it was able to pick that up from him for pretty good price. But that was another thing that evolved over time, and I've had that for a few years. And the tower is a tilt-over tower, 40 foot of Rowan 25. And as soon as I can get the rotor remounted on it and get the mast put in, we'll tilt that back up and start reassembling the antennas.
Great. All right, we'll finish up back in your shack. Thank you so much for being our next Yhamradio volunteer and coming in on this episode. And we want to really tell you how much we appreciate you taking the time to doing it.
Mark, it's been great fun, and I hope to do it again some other time. And ham radio has been great fun. I have met some of the nicest people in the world, and I hope to continue.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
73.
73, Mark.